Hello. This is a response video to Daryl Sloan's Atheism versus Pantheism, and I'm calling this God in the Abstract. That does begin with me saying that all I know is that I do not know. As far as existence is concerned, I do not know what it is all about, but I have thought a lot about it, and through that diligent study I have come to some conclusions. When we look at the concept of God in the most abstract form, we are looking for something higher and supersensible. We are searching for truth, the truth of existence, meaning, and why we are here. I am a mystic at heart. I do not believe that these things will ever be found. However, the diligent study and search for them seems to be very deep within us and driving us to want to find out why. Let us begin by asking the question of what God is. What does God mean? And especially in the abstract. God is, in the most abstract form, the unknowable, the unreachable, and the unpronounceable. It is that thing that will always be unrevealed. When we understand that that is what God means, then we understand that actually God is the symbol of truth. And to the truth seeker with the religious bend, they will always seek for God. I, on the other hand, do not have that bend, and so I seek for truth. We all do, to a degree, some more than others. Why we do this seems to be key to our existence. However, all we can really do is look around us, look at the reality that we see before us, and ask, what does this mean? Is there anything greater than this? I think that that is a good question, but an unanswerable question. The nature of existence and the mystery behind it all is what is known as ontology. Ontology is the study of the nature of being and existence. I believe in something called the ontological God. It is also known as Spinoza's God or the Great Mystery. And I have long accepted what is known as the middle pathway, meaning that I do take the position of atheism, but atheism is an anti-position. You see, it doesn't actually answer what this all means. All it says is that I don't believe in God or gods. But when we want to define the mystery of things as God or the divine, I wonder why that is, because I do not see the need for wanting to call anything God or divine. But I understand why some do, because there is an honorable intent there. You see, pantheism, or seeing God in everything, seeing the divine in all, is very honorable. Christianity takes the opposite, where it sees the evil in everything. So I definitely understand why people would be pantheists. I, however, still subscribe to the philosophy known as neutral monism, meaning that behind everything there is one absolute truth. And this is all we can really do, is argue these types of philosophical ideas, because none of us know, but we have these personal preferences, and they're based on belief and our own personal experience of reality that we equal as truth. Let me just look at my notes here. Atheism is is a position and can also be looked at as a philosophy. When it's just a position, it just means the antiposition of looking at creator gods as being something that is unnecessary, unneeded, and untrue. But as a philosophy, we get into the materialistic and deterministic point of view. Now, if you're interested in learning about what determinism is and its opposite, probability, I would suggest researching the debate between Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett. They are both brilliant philosophers. I am of the side of Dennett. I strongly oppose Harris's positions. I completely disagree with a lot of his assertions. Even though some are reasonable, when you follow him through his points, I find that Dennett is actually a much, much better view of what reality is and the conclusions that we come to based on that. So if you're interested, there is a debate between the two, a very famous one, and then they've also discussed each other, and there's lots of information out there about that. So what is determinism and what is probability? Basically, determinism is the idea that everything that is happening was set in motion at the time of the Big Bang, and nothing can change it. It is determined, and reality will follow this pathway that is already determined. But probability says that determinism can only be looked at in the retrospect. That yes, when you look at things from behind, everything seems deterministic, but actually follows the rule and law of probability. It's like when you look at a river and you see how it's carved its way through nature, you say, well, that's the only way the river could go. That's true. But the river followed the path of least resistance. There were many ways it could go up to the point that it went, and it's all based on probability. There is only one pathway. But what was the reason that the pathway formed? Was it because it had to be that way? Yes. But it's based on probability, not deterministic. Right? So determinism and probability are actually, they're the different ways of looking at the same thing. One is from a retrospective point of view and one is from a futuristic point of view. But it really doesn't serve a point or purpose to have a strong opinion about either, because you can argue both. Both make sense. You see, determinism is the way that it is, and probability is the way that it could be. But there is only one way. Right? So both have a point. Now let's get back to the idea of pantheism and atheism. Pantheism, seeing God within everything. Well, what is the need for God? Why do we need that term, God? Why do we need to express things in divinity? I do not see the need for that, other than that it takes us away from that materialistic point of view, and that is a good thing. It brings us back to the mysticism of that we do not know. And when we understand that even though we search, we don't know and we will never know, it doesn't take away from anything. You see, so to call yourself a mystic is a good thing. And religion takes the opposite approach. It says, we do know. We know, and this is the answer. But even within religion, there are studies and sects that prove that the truth seeker will always seek. And that is why you find many Christians jumping from one viewpoint or sect to another, is because they're constantly searching still for truth and what God is in the abstract. When we start giving attributes to God, we are starting to, we personify him. And the reason that we do this is because God is also a myth. It's mythological in the fact that we can idolize it, copy it, and exemplify. This is the nature of the demigod. Jesus is a demigod. And he is a character example of behavior. And the more you strive to want to be like him, you are following the search for myth. You are exemplifying a character of being to help perfect yourself, make yourself better and closer to what you consider perfection to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's important to understand that God as myth is very much like a template for character behavior. That makes sense. Consciousness and life are things that are universal, and this is a tricky subject to get into, because the seeds of consciousness and life are within the universe, and we are an example of that. And all we know is the reality that is around us. And so I can very confidently say that life and consciousness is universal, because what we can absolutely state as a reality is that life and consciousness has come forth from the universe, and therefore the universe holds the seeds to these things. Now, what that means, I do not know. But I hear a lot of people use the explanation, we are the universe expressing itself. Now, this has always bothered me because it implies intent. Why is the universe expressing itself? What is the intention behind this? It does not satisfy me. If anything, it makes me want to ask a million more questions. I think that one of the best explanations of reality is actually the simulation theory. This is actually every religion, can subscribe to this. Every explanation of our existence can actually come into this theory, that we are experiencing something that was constructed and created to have this experience, but that there was something higher and that is orchestrated. So let's talk a little bit about deism, theism, pantheism, and atheism for a moment. Deism and theism are actually very, very different in their ideas, and I think that atheists and deists have a lot more in common, and theists and pantheists have things in common, meaning that there is a mystery to things. Now, what created it all? We don't know. So a deist will say, well, something created it, but we don't know what it is. And an atheist will also say, we don't know what it is. And so there's a similarity there. The theist and the pantheist will say, God is behind it all. God is within it all. And that is their explanation, you see. So let me just summarize things by saying the truth of the matter is that the closer we examine this, we come to the conclusion that we do not know, we will never know, and that is the great mystery. So to call yourself a mystic is a good thing. There's nothing woo-woo hippie about it unless you take it too far. To say that there is a great mystery behind it all is the truth. And I will leave that with you. Goodbye.